Hello, this is CH is True here on the Continuum Hypothesis is True channel. I am going to launch into a series now on the scientific theory, or let's say conjecture, known as panspermia. Panspermia is defined as the belief that life on Earth has a cosmic origin. It is divided between various schools of panspermia. The one school of panspermia believing that life essentially came to this planet through just a general diffusion process. Perhaps something landed on Mars and life had arisen on Mars, and that there's a theory that the DNA molecule arose on Mars, and that somehow a meteor came from Mars and landed on Earth and seeded life here. Okay, that's one version of panspermia. There are other schools of panspermia that are a little bit more speculative, and they involve an actual deliberate seeding of life on Earth by an advanced extraterrestrial civilization. This would be called directed panspermia. I'm currently in the process of reading Life Itself, Its Origin and Nature by Francis Crick, one of the discoverers of the DNA molecule. Okay, and he, for a time, was willing to speculate on directed panspermia. I think that the kind of uber skeptics got to him, the ones who talk about the burden of proof and the null hypothesis. Although, strangely enough, they never explain why it is that the null hypothesis, what exactly an extraordinary claim is that requires extraordinary evidence. Because if you look at it, the term extraordinary is subjective. So when you talk about an extraordinary claim, that's defined subjectively. They never just, they kind of avoid that one as an actual topic of conversation. But neither here nor there. A world-famous scientist, Francis Crick, somebody who, by the way, is a little bit controversial given some racially charged statements that he's made. And you find in this book definitely some objectionable comments that are found throughout the book to, let's say, sensibilities of today. It was written sometime in the late 70s, early 80s when standards were a little bit different, but I would say, he is a brilliant scientist, and definitely his willingness to give directed panspermia at least consideration, should give us some pause for thought. Okay, then you have forms of panspermia that go just a little bit further, okay, where they posit active extraterrestrial intervention into life on Earth itself. Then you go to the far end where it gets into UFO speculations. The reason I know is because I talked to the aliens and, they gave me a mission and I'm here to save the world. And okay, so you get it to where it maybe goes well beyond what the scientific community would be willing to consider, not so much because it's a, quote, extraordinary claim, but because there just isn't any evidence. It goes on personal testimony. So I'm not going to be considering the far end of the panspermia debate where it goes outside of scientific consideration. I'm not going to be considering UFOs or alien breeding experiment ideas. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be considering soft panspermia. First of all, my next video is going to be on the history of the theory of panspermia, just kind of as an intellectual overview. Then after that, I'm going to go to maybe some of the recent scientific discoveries. I'll have to refresh myself on that. Then hopefully by that time I'll have finished reading this and we can talk about it a little bit. And then a little bit of a conclusion. So stay tuned. This is going to be a treat for me to do, frankly. I want to say just from the very outset that I don't want to interject too many of my own opinions in here. I want to say, though, from the outset that I believe more and more that we have to consider that we are part of potentially a cosmic community. Now, we haven't, unless, again, you give credence to the idea that UFOs are from other planets, I would say the mainstream scientific community will say that we have not yet confirmed the existence of life on other worlds. However, we have discovered a bunch of potentially habitable planets. We also have meteors that I think raise questions. Now, they're questions that the NASA community seems to want to put the kibosh on. I mean, they don't want some of these microfossils even, or potential microfossils, even really discussed. And I think that that is interesting. And unfortunately, the more the conversation is suppressed, the more some of these out there theories and ideas start to get credence. You know, well, what's NASA covering up? Why won't NASA discuss this particular anomaly here? And so that's why I think that there needs to be a scientific conversation. There needs to be an actual debate. And the one thing we don't shy away from here on the Continuum Hypothesis is True channel is debate. We have a free flow of ideas here. I do not, as a rule, get it very much into science, and that's why, again, I'm more of a math, philosophy, and now, I guess, occasionally political science kind of person. So, you know, I'm going to let the experts do the talking, but again, what I would say, and I want you to have critical ears, okay, is I want you to think what possible ideas are being floated here that some people may want to float without necessarily having the responsibility of having to fully stand behind. Okay, without getting into UFOs and the paranormal, what might be ideas that people are trying to say that they're not willing to fully commit to, and if they are trying to suggest that, well, maybe extraterrestrial civilizations have come here. You know, maybe there is, without getting into Zecharia Sitchin and all that stuff, that aside, or Velikovsky or any of that kind of stuff, and I think that's how you pronounce his name. Leave that aside. You know, what possible evidence might there be? For instance, and I'm going to leave off with this. There are periods of what you might call punctuated equilibrium in the fossil record. Okay, between you and me, don't spread the word around. Stephen Jay Gould noted this. Various evolutionary biologists have noted this, that the standard neo-Darwinist interpretation can't really account for things like the Cambrian explosion or the various explosions of life after the great extinctions. Oh, they'll claim that they can, but, you know, that's argument from authority. The fact of the matter is, these were not slow, gradual processes. And if these were not slow, gradual processes, then you have to consider, scientifically, other possibilities. Think about it now. Right now, we are at the cusp of space travel. If there is intelligent life out there, probability-wise, and even Carl Sagan, who is a skeptic on all matters UFO and stuff like that, and that's fine. Again, I'm not going into UFOs. Even Carl Sagan, though, admitted that if that among intelligent civilizations, we would have to be one of the more primitive, just by the laws of probability. Let's say you have a civilization that's 1 billion years more advanced than we are. Think about 1 billion. Think how much we've progressed in 100 years. If they survived the stage of destroying themselves, we're talking something pretty fantastic. Now, life probably first arose, let's say life first arose when it could, at the end of the carbon, nitrogen, oxygen cycle. That could give it about 1 billion years after the Big Bang. Maybe make it 2 billion years. Okay, so 11.7 billion years ago. Let's say intelligent life arose, I don't know, 9 billion years ago. Do you understand how many billions of years that is? You understand that it is possible that they could interfere with the genetic development of life on different worlds. I'm just saying it's possible. But I'm not going to interject this with my own opinions. I think it's going to be a fun ride. It's going to be a fun scientific conjecture. It's not a theory, because a theory implies evidence that we don't have. It's conjecture. Stay tuned. I hope you enjoy yourselves, and we'll talk to you then.